As a hairstylist who owns multiple multi-million-dollar companies, in this podcast, I'm talking to hairstylists and salon owners who are ready to put in the work to build wealth. We are literally teaching stylists how to get results. We're getting them to get results on how to make more money behind the chair and to create their own empires. It's what you know that you don't know that you need to know in order to get to where you want to go. Because I understand now that in order for me to get to my targets and my big goals and be able to impact 500,000 stylists all over the world and 400 plus salon owners and helping them run an efficient business that they don't feel like they're babysitting anymore, that they feel like they know how to scale it because they have the right information. We get to touch this magic every day of giving people the confidence of hair, but truly it's how do we be more impactful and understanding. My name is Terra Harvell and this is the Terra Harvell Show.
Okay, you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Terra Harvell Show. I'm so excited today because you guys hear so many things about my beliefs on how salons should be ran, how you scale as a salon owner, and I'm just excited to bring in Ashley Thomas, who is someone that we haven't yet worked directly together, and she has scaled to crazy levels, and I'm excited for you guys to hear from her because, you know, she's put in a lot of the systems in place that it takes to scale a business. So I'm not going to steal her thunder, but Ashley, thank you for being here. And I want you to introduce yourself, tell everybody that's listening who you are, what you've done, all of the things.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I saw you on stage in Scottsdale at the Data Driven event, and I was like, I need to connect with her because I resonated with your story so much, and it just lit a fire under my ass, and I was really excited to get to connect with you. My name is Ashley Thomas, and I own a commission-based salon in Wind Gap, Pennsylvania. It's a very teeny tiny little town here in the middle of nowhere. And I was—
When you say teeny tiny though, how much? Because I feel like people are like, I'm in a small town. What's the population there? Do you know?
less than 3,000.
Holy shit, that's a teeny tiny town. You're right. Okay.
It is teeny tiny. Like, we just got our very first Starbucks within 20 minutes, like 2 weeks ago. It's the talk of the town. Talk of the town.
Amazing. Well, this story's getting even better. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So we opened our salon about 6 years ago. I had zero leadership experience. I've never led a team. I could barely lead myself at the time, to be completely transparent. And I just dove in, and the success and journey has been amazing since then. We moved from our first location to a much larger location a couple years ago, and we have just had crazy growth, and it has been a hell of a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Roller coaster.
So I want you to tell people the size of your business. Just tell me the revenue, and how many stylists. And let me just clarify, you're still in the same small town, correct?
Yes, still in the tiny town. Yes. So we have 30 team members currently, 19 service providers, and the rest make up our support staff and leadership team. And we are on track this year to cross the $2.2 million mark, which is insane to even say that out loud. You know, when we hit our first $1 million, I was like, what the hell? I can't believe this is my life. I can't believe we've created this in this town. And it has just been wild. You know, at this point, though, those figures just become true figures and numbers. I'm very proud of the revenue and the growth, of course, but yeah, it's really what's going on behind the scenes in the building.
So I know that my audience, which, you know, my audience is primarily salon owners. And right now, especially, I'm working with so many of them that, you know, they open booth rental salons because that's what everybody else does. So I want to clarify, you're in the small town. I would imagine if there's other salons in your town, is that the structure that is all around you?
So in Pennsylvania, it's illegal to booth rent. So yes, you can only have W-2 employees, or you can open like a suite or something like that.
Nice. Okay. So there are suites and stuff and that sort of structure around you. Okay.
Yes.
So how many did you start your salon with? Like, when you opened the doors, how many stylists did you have that were on board, and tell me what the beginning stages looked like for you?
Sure. So we opened in 2019, and it was myself. I was behind the chair at the time. And Shelby, who was my hairstylist, it actually used to be my manager at another salon. And then we were our experienced stylists coming into it. And then we had 2 baby stylists joining our team, and that was it. So there were 4 of us all in.
Wow. Okay. And so now you have 30. Tell me, like, because I know, and you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. The biggest issue with salons that I see all the time is like how they can't beg people to work there. And then when they are hiring, they're hiring people with heartbeats. You know, they're like, oh, you can breathe. Amazing. Come, let's work together. Obviously, you're 30 people. If you're doing, you know, that amount of revenue, obviously it's strategic. You're not just hiring people, anybody coming off the street. So tell me about going from 4 to 30 and what did that look like?
It was a wild ride. So in our first year, we went from 4 to, I would say, 10 in our first year, maybe 8. And it was, you know, unprecedented times because it was 13 months into our journey. We were closed for COVID for 4 months. And again, I had no idea what I was doing at all. And so that's kind of like where the leadership journey really transformed through the COVID closure and reopening and stuff like that, which I'm sure we can get into later. Leading 4 people and leading 30 is a totally different ballgame. Obviously, there's so many more people, a lot more personalities. And that's the piece where I feel like people underestimate is trying to mesh that many people together.
Right.
And so it was, I want to say, a slow burn in the beginning, right? We were kind of adding, and again, we were just kind of bringing people in, but we had no structure in the beginning. I mean, literally our whole hiring premise was no rules, just come do hair, have fun and go home. Be a good human.
Yeah.
That's how I would
That's how we ran our salon from
Yes.
day one. Yes.
So, you know, I think now having 30 employees, there is physically no way possible that we could have this many people without the structure that we now have. And so I think that was kind of the piece that really transformed it to where we are now.
Yeah.
But it's hard to have that many people in one space, all coexisting, you know, having that ecosystem flowing perfectly together, which it's not always perfect, but getting as close to perfect as you can. It's because of the systems for sure.
Yeah. So tell me about that structure and those systems. And like, obviously, it sounds like you and I opened a business the exact same way. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I just was like, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. I actually had multiple walkouts because of my lack of leadership and my lack of vision. And, you know, like they didn't have a reason to come to work every day. They did it because they had to maybe, or, you know, that was just their livelihood. And I quickly learned, you know, that concept is just not enough. It's not what's going to keep people with you or keep them loyal. I used to think that people were loyal to me just because I'm me, you know, like, oh, they love to work here. So it's a beautiful salon and I'm cool. And like, wow, got knocked on my ass really, really quickly because none of those things were true. And so, you know, I obviously had to grow a lot in that. And so I know that you have your own version of the story. So I'd love to hear like what that looked like what does the structure look like? How'd you know that you had to do something different?
I would say it really came from being closed for 4 months. We reopened. I was behind the chair at the time, like 70 hours a week. And then, yeah, coming back from COVID, I had 2 brand new team members that we reopened with. And that moment really showed where we were lacking. I mean, it literally pushed all the ugly out in the open, and where we were lacking systems, it was like, boom, right inside my face, and there was no avoiding it. So we did kind of tread water for the first couple months, just trying to survive, obviously, like everyone was. And then I was like, we would literally, all of us would be constantly in the basement, like crying in between clients.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, something has to change. And so at that moment, I joined a coaching company that really supported me in making, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And so they really educated me on different facets of things that weren't really working out. And so when I say we changed everything, I mean, we changed schedules, commission structure, we changed our pricing structure, everything. I pulled it all back and just came in with a whole new plan, kind of all at once. And I was very grateful to say I retained every single employee through that process, and almost every single one of them are still here today, which was really freaking cool. But it was just coming in with almost overly structuring. So every time even still to this day, every time something starts to give me that tinge in my stomach where I'm just like, oh, this has come up way too many times. We need a system. It doesn't have to be rigid. The systems don't have to be rigid. They just have to be there for people to rely on.
So what I deal with inside of, my community of salon owners is their lack of confidence to go in and change things. Like they are literally deathly afraid of everyone walking out the door. And it's almost like they put their ego first. It's like they could not handle the fact that maybe some people inside their salon might not be aligned. Lucky for you, everyone stayed, and I think that's awesome. But like, why do you think people stay? Because this is what people struggle with.
Yeah, I definitely reflect on that quite often. And I have like spoke on this a lot. And I think the reason that people stayed is I educated myself so much and I really truly put myself in their shoes before like rolling it out to them.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
for example, I dropped our entire commission structure. Every single person on my team lowered their commission, which is like, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a huge, crazy no-no that people would be afraid to do. And I knew I had to do it because I also knew the numbers weren't working.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so we raised our prices and dropped our commission all at the same time. And I ran every single scenario over and over and over until I was solid on it. And then the second layer to it was I genuinely put myself in their shoes, right? I sat down and I thought, what could be a fear that they're going to have with what I'm saying? And so when I rolled it out to them, I was able to
Beat those objections.
exactly. Like I was saying it before it was probably even coming into their mind. Like I have truly tried to think of everything. Of course, I didn't think of all of their fears, and we got to talk through that in the moment.
Yeah.
And so I also told them, if this does not work, we will change it. And I mean, every single person needs to be making more money or we will figure something else out. Or not, maybe not more money, but at least the same amount of money.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I had to mean it, right? I can't just say that to my entire team and then turn around and be like, just kidding.
Yeah.
These three are making more money and you're losing money. And so screw you. You know what I mean? And so thank God it did work out in that direction. But, you just have to really, I think a lot of us will come up with something and just throw it out there without actually doing the hard work on the back end. And so just really thinking about things in advance like that. But then also you have to be a risk taker. You have to just jump in.
A couple of things that I want people to make sure that they hear from what you just said, because what you just said is worth $1 million. The competence is why people lack the confidence, the incompetence. You had to go learn from someone who was teaching you, had already done it. I think that's key. I always say, my audience knows, like I have gotten to where I'm at today only because I went and spent the money with people that know what the hell they're doing, and because then you take the long way around if you're trying to do it yourself. And so I love that you mentioned that, because anyone successful, that has been what they've done. They've not just figured it out on their own. They went and actually learned from somebody. But the other thing is, you were like, I went and learned exactly what I did not know, the information that I did not know, in order to be confident to show up to my team and go, listen, we're about to flip this thing on its head. You're going to have to love it, basically. But the other thing that I thought you said was genius was, I thought of every single thing before they could come to me. And then I was like, because that's exactly what I see inside of our own community is people will be what we call a reckless doer. And they will go out and just recklessly be like, oh, here's the new thing. We're so excited. But then you are not competent enough to answer the questions when, because their questions are valid. Their feelings are valid. I always say, inside my business, feelings are justified always, right? It's just like, are you ready to be able to break that down to be able to steer them a different direction? So tell me a little bit about your structure, because I think that's what other salon owners are very always interested in and learning. Like what's the growth path like? And, like how important is your growth path inside of your environment?
All right. So we have every single person in our building has a career path, right? So they know what is coming next and how to get to their raise, their promotion, but it's not always just about numbers, right?
Yeah.
It is also about being a good human being and sticking to our values in this building.
Yeah.
And I think that is super important because it's important to value both things, right?
Mhm.
Because if you're just constantly handing out raises based off of, KPIs, it really can get a negative taste in their mouth, which I fully understand.
Yeah.
But you also have to be able to show up as a good human being in this building and follow the values that we have. So every single person, front desk team, assistant team, we're all on a career path, leadership, and obviously our service providers.
Mhm.
And for our stylist team, I'll talk on that. We have a tiered pricing structure, different levels and stuff like that, and they can make their way through that. obviously they're either going to earn some sort of price increase through that or a commission increase. And we try to offset that. So the client isn't being pounded with price increases. The salon will take the hit, the client will take the hit, going back and forth. That has worked really well. And I feel like a lot of things that we get wrong in this industry is kind of like what you were saying earlier. People are just like afraid. So they want to like get bodies in the door. So they will just agree to something that doesn't actually align with the business. That rarely works, right? Or it rarely creates longevity. And so I wanted to find a way to have longevity for people in my business. So they didn't get to, I'm going to use quotes here, like the top, and feel like they had to go open their own salon. Now, if they want to open their own salon, by all means, I will gladly support that.
Yeah.
But it's like a lot of people get forced into doing that because they don't have any other option. And it is not the same thing. Like owning a salon and being a great hairstylist couldn't be different if we try. Like it's so different.
Yeah, very different.
It's so different.
Something that we, which I talk about a lot is I see a lot of salon owners that go out, and the reason why I want to talk on this is because I know a lot of salon owners that are in this position. They go out and they open salons maybe prematurely. And I say that lightly because I totally did that, right? I was like, oh, the next step is let's go open a salon. And then that's why I fell flat on my ass for several years in a row, because it was like I had to figure out, I was still a stylist because my income behind the chair, my revenue behind the chair was actually paying the bills. I see that happening a lot inside of the salon industry. They're like, if I step back behind the chair, Tara, my business is going downhill. I'm like, okay, you have to be able to problem solve that and fix that. But I think in order to be able to step away from behind the chair, you have to build a stat so that your team knows what success looks like. You can't just be like, oh, I'm in retirement now, and suddenly I'm over here just making all the rules, right? So tell me about what that looked like for you. And do you kind of agree with that same concept? Like, did you have to build a stat behind the chair as a stylist to show people, okay, this is how it looks like to be successful?
For sure. And I was unbeknownst to myself doing it at the time. And looking back, I can see what I was doing. But, you have to be able to support the dreams that people are bringing to you and say, like, I walked in your shoes before then. And so I think that's super important. But for me, again, I was like 70 hours a week behind the chair, triple booked every day. It was just wild. I now have people in my business that are able to do the same sales and surpass them, double what I was doing, even working a third of the hours I was working behind the chair. And I think that piece right there speaks to stepping away allowed me to lead my team in a way that I could have never imagined, and they could have never imagined.
Right.
But I didn't do it all at once. So I always say I peeled back layers of the onion year after year. Every year I started pulling a little bit more back. And that worked for me. And I'm now doing hair maybe 2 days a month at that. And it's because I want to do it, not because I have to do it. My business blew up when I stopped doing as much hair.
Yeah.
I wish more people could just do that, because it's not as scary as it seems. And the way that you can lead your team will come back tenfold versus what you can do when you're behind the chair.
You're dropping so many valuable nuggets, like what you said. Okay, yes, I did do well behind the chair, but now my team can do more than that, working less. To me, that's what great leadership is. And I think that's where one of my mentors says this all the time. And when she says it, I'm like, gold. She says leadership is making success easy for other people. Like if your stylist inside your salon are spinning their wheels and they're constantly not winning, you're not leading, because they should be able to walk into the door and be like, I have arrived to the promised land where success is just bred inside this building. And so I love what you said, because I think a lot of salon owners miss that. But I think the other thing that is, if being a stylist and being a salon are two different things. If you want to be a stylist, if you're so obsessed with that, go find a salon like yours, right? Go find somewhere that's going to help you grow in that career versus going out and running and scaling a business. I have a comment on my TikTok right now. I've been waiting to respond to it, but she said, not everyone wants to scale, Tara. Like not everyone, some people just want to like show up, make their money and go home. What is your take on that?
Woo! I believe that a comment like that is really just someone being scared because they're so afraid of what it looks like on the other side and who they have to become to be on the other side.
Yes.
Because
Oh
what
my
is the point in owning a business
God.
if you aren't going to be great? Or that's my philosophy, at least.
I completely agree with that. And I also think there's a bit of like selfishness to that because, I think if we're capable and it goes both sides, like your employees, I know you love your employees just like I do. And I think sometimes and you will agree with this, you probably love your employees more than they even know that you do. Like, as business owners, we're up at night thinking about them, and sometimes we think about their personal lives and is that okay? And we want them to be exceeding and everything. And so I think there's two sides of that. Like it would be selfish. I have a family too. I have a husband, I have a 4-year-old son, and I just could not imagine that if I showed up at home every day. I have this, when she commented that, this immediate picture came into my mind, and I was like, me walking through my front door and looking at my 4-year-old son and looking at my husband every single day and going, my goal is not to scale. I know that I'm capable, but my goal is to not do that and to create a better life for you. And I think the same way with my employees. So I love that you said that because I agree. So,
Yeah, 100%. You have that responsibility. If you want to bring people in, you have that responsibility. You can't make them live at your level, right? You have to
right.
keep going forward.
Exactly. So you mentioned, you scaled up 450%. And what was the time frame on that?
6 years. So I would say about 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, and then you said you're debt free. I think those two things, like, I hope you're screaming those two things from the rooftop because that's not the story for a lot of salon owners. What is the biggest like contribute to doing those two things, scaling that much and then being debt free? Like how do you accomplish that?
I have 3 things for this. The very first one is absolutely going to be you have to get financially literate, right? You have to understand. You cannot build what you do not understand.
Yes.
Point blank, period. I hope everybody hears that very
Yeah.
strongly here. Outsourcing is really great, but I am a firm believer that in the beginning, obviously we have to have an accountant, right? We're not accountants, but in the very beginning, you have to at least learn the basics so you can hold other people accountable when you hire them, so you have an idea of what's going on.
Yes.
So that's the first piece. The second piece is definitely in that process, I had to get brutally honest with myself. I'm very self-aware, and I'm also really good at like challenging myself and my own thoughts and patterns. But I know everyone is not like that. That's definitely a superpower of mine. But if you're not like that, you have to find someone, at least either a friend, a mentor, or even someone on your team to look you dead in the face and just be like, what the hell's going on? They have to call you out, right?
Yes. Yes. Totally.
And then, of course, I'm going to say this word again. I feel like I've repeated this word 100 times, but the third piece of that is just systematize everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Creativity, we're in a creative field, obviously. Creativity needs structure. It craves it, and it is what holds it up and supports it.
Yes. I love that. I'm going to
Yeah.
quote my social media girl sitting over here. We're going to quote that on a graphic. That's incredible. Because I think a lot of our industry is like afraid of the structure, right? They preach, and I know even in my world, in my part of the country where booth rent is not illegal, it should be, but they preach that like that is the end all be all because that's the freedom. You get freedom, but there's no structure. And I don't know why we started thinking that way as the industry as a whole, because like to me, the structure is the freedom. And the reason why I say that, I posted this the other day. It's been at least, well, I got my hair done the other day, so I did go in the salon for that, but my office is next door to the salon. So I'm in the vicinity, but it's been 90 plus days since I've walked into my salon. And unless I went in there to just like mess with people or be like, what's up? Like I don't know. I try to go in and just say hello, but I could not tell you, and I say 90 days, maybe it could be closer to the 6 months. Like now, do I at my desk, create new processes or brainstorm on processes that have to go? Here's the cool thing. I've scaled so much that I don't even create the processes no more. I have employees that they go create the processes. I'm like, hey, this looks a little screwed up. We should probably go fix this. But the reason why I say that is because that would not be possible. That's freedom, right? We're doing 1.5 million, and that's with 5 full-time stylists. And we have 25% profitability now.
and I'm not even been inside the walls of the salon. That is freedom. And I think that's where we just get a bit confused. So talk more about that. Like, what does that look like in your life? Like, how present do you have to be in creating, these processes? And after they are created, what does freedom look like for you?
I fully agree with you. I think really quick, I think a lot of our industry gets this wrong. I think this is where we get it wrong, is that we avoid the systems because we think it's going to make it feel better, but it actually creates even more chaos. And then you have to stick to the system. If the system is working, you don't just say, oh, that was working, I'm going to not do it anymore. And then all of a sudden everything's falling apart. But for me personally, I am still in the salon day to day. I'm here 4 days a week, which is great. And I think that you have to get your team on board, which is where we're at right now, right? My team is very on board. So when a system starts to slip, they're holding everyone accountable, each other accountable, or themselves accountable. I'm kind of at a point now where it's beautiful. People will literally open the office door and say, hey, I just want to let you know XYZ happened. I did this. This is totally on me. Like, I will make it better in the future. Like, they're telling on themselves. And I'm just like, like, if I really reflect on it, I'm like, God bless, man. I'm so glad that we got to this point that, like, I don't have to be the one to bring up the hard conversation 100% of the time.
Yes.
And freedom for me would be that, honestly, which is where I feel like I am. Like, I really appreciate that so much.
And I love that. And I think, and if the salon was my only business, I truly think I would be there because I do love it. I think I would be there, just day to day. Exactly. But I love that you said that. But the one thing I want to ask is, I think a lot of salon owners sit and go, how do I teach people to do that though? Because what you taught is self-awareness. And you made a safe space for people to be like, oh, I've screwed up, but I'm also fixing it, and that's a lot of what happens inside my own environment. And I agree, but we haven't always been this way. There were lots of times that I'm like banging my head up against the wall, like, how do I get people to just do the right thing? Like, what in the world? So I know salon owners listening to this, like, wow, that sounds incredible, but how the hell do I get to that point?
I think it's really blending soul and systems together, right? It's having that middle ground. I literally just got chills. Woo! Because I believe in that so much. Like, you can't be so rigid on the system and also expect your team to continue to bring things to you. There's like a saying, be hard on the problem and soft on the person, or something like that. And I believe in that so much. Like, if they are slipping, right, and you want them to get better, you cannot attack them. They're going to go into their little shell, and that's the last time you're going to hear from them.
Yeah.
So I believe that you got to explain to people and be transparent on why the system is there in the first place.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, it's there to either protect them, protect their client, make them, this big, beautiful career, whatever it might be. And so if I over explain things, so people can almost get into my mind and learn from why I'm making these decisions, and then also maybe start coming up with their own systems that they want to implement on things that they're seeing when they're out on the floor.
Totally. And inside of our environment, we reward for people that make new systems that work, because I don't want to be the only one. Like, I don't want to be the only one out there solving the world's problems, because then you become a firefighter. I know I can definitely say, I've been a firefighter before, and I am sometimes still. I'm not going to like lie, and be like, oh, life is so glorious. No, there are days that I come in and I'm like, whew, I get ready to go home and I'm like, I have solved the world's problems today. So I love that you said that, because that's what's happening is, you're not the only contributing member to your business. And I think a lot of salon owners get stuck in that. They literally have created this environment where people just show up to work and then they walk out and they're not invested in the growth of the business. So that leads me to my next question. Do the stylist, and one thing I heard you say at the beginning of the podcast was my leadership team. So I want to get into that next, because it's clear that you're not doing this by yourself. Does the stylist inside your salon know what the future looks like for them? Like, are they clear about, their growth and where they're headed and all of that?
This is definitely the next layer we're trying to implement. And so there are leadership opportunities available. My team knows that if they bring something to me and they have an idea, they want to go open a business or whatever it is that they want to do, I will support that, because I have done that in the past and I will continue to do that.
Yeah.
So we're kind of just at this point right now where they can stay service providers as long as they want, right? Yeah. But I know that's not going to be the case for everybody for forever. And so I kind of more or less just leave it open-ended. I'm here if you want to bring me something, but I'm not necessarily pumping out position or opportunities.
Yeah. And that's growth. I mean, that happens over time for sure. And I think that's where a lot of business owners want to get, is like, okay, how can I long-term, but it sounds like you haven't had many issues with a retention, right? I mean, everyone is still there. I mean, everyone has retention. Let's not get in the clouds here. You mentioned everyone, when you made all these switches, everyone is still there. Like, that's an incredible stat because that doesn't happen in this industry. I actually was reading the other day that 80% of stylists within 18 months move to a new salon.
Isn't that wild? That is so wild. And that's definitely something as an industry we should be out to correct, right? We should be out there. Obviously is a reason that is happening, and we have to be out to correct that. I'm going to knock on wood. I'm very grateful to be this far in and not have had a salon walkout yet. I know it will come, and my time will come, and we will be there. But, even for that, having a system for that, right? So I created a system from a place where nobody was leaving, but I know it's going to happen. I sat down with all of my senior stylists. I gave them the system and said, when you leave one day, when it happens, because it will, do you feel like this system is fair? They gave me their input. I incorporated it into it. And so now we have a system for when we have to offboard an employee, right? And they're going to go open their own salon, or they're going to go to another salon. And it was made from a non-emotional standpoint.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. The emotion. That is why it ruins everything. I love it.
Does.
Because if it's not off of emotion, what did you build it off of? The data, the stats? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. The numbers. And that's the thing, like, you can't, I get a lot of salon owners like, oh, I just had a message yesterday. One of my salon owners in the program, she's like, she left, and you could just see it. It was in text form, and I could just see the devastation. I'm like, it's fine. Now go hire someone else. Let's keep moving. You don't have to get emotional, but I get it. We get attached to people, and so do I. I have a few in my salon, or all of them now. My salon team, I can't brag about them enough, but there's not one of them that could walk out the door that wouldn't affect me in a way, my heart, but also would move forward because I'm still going to where my destination is, with or without one person, right? And so I think that's a massive, we have to get unemotional as much as it's hard, we have to get unemotional about some of these things because they're normal and it's part of growing and scaling a business. But you mentioned
I agree.
of this, and you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast about your leadership team. Like, that is where another thing that I think people just don't develop. They think that they can only be the only leader. And I just can imagine the misery that would have. So what does that look like?
So that has been, again, another thing that we have just built over time. Let's see, I have about 7 leaders on my team, all in different capacities, all at different, different positions. And 5 out of the 7 are all service providers as well, right? So they might have 1 or 2 shifts a week where they're in the office or in a different department. And then the other days they're behind the chair. And that is where I say the opportunity is there. If I need something or I'm looking for something, I'll put it out to the team, and somebody usually kind of sneaks in there. And that has been huge. So we have a director of hiring and team development, game changer. I hate and never liked it ever hiring. Not my thing. I would hire every single person that walks in my door because I go more off of like, let's see how you are in 60 days when the masks come off,
I'm with you. Yeah.
We have a director of operations, and she came to us about a year ago, or over a year ago. And that was a huge game changer because that was our last leadership hire that we brought on. And she's not in the industry, right? She's not a service provider. She actually came from a pharmaceutical background.
Nice.
And I was looking at it. Okay, what is our leadership team missing right now? We had amazing ideas. We had all the pieces were there, except for there was no one to get things from point A to point B and hold up the structure.
Yeah.
And so we brought her on, and that's been great.
Yeah, for sure. Because you can't, and that's where you just can't build it on your own. And that's where I think a lot of this industry, even just stylists, I look at stylists and suites and stuff, I could not imagine signing a lease on a 10 by 10 square. What is the plan there? Like, you can't, how are you going to fit your team in there? You can't build a team, and you have to, in order to scale. And I get a lot of pushback. It's like, well, people like to work by themselves. I'm like, yes, sure. But those are the people that are afraid to lead. And so I want to, when was that turning point with leadership with you? Because that has been my biggest turning point in my own career and building my businesses. I think back of, me 5 years ago, even, I'm like, what a shitty leader I was, and I thought I was a good leader. I was a born leader. Everyone naturally just follows me. I could not have been more idiotic just to think those thoughts. And so leadership really hit me in the face. I had to go learn how to be a great leader and to be self-aware and like understand what I'm absolutely terrible at and then improve the things. It's really hard to look in the mirror. So I want to know what that journey looked like for you, because I know that you could probably tell lots of stories. And how did you learn to be a great leader?
Trial and error, right? I made so many mistakes, but I owned up to them every single time. I have gotten in front of my team and said, I screwed up, guys. And here's what happened. And I think for me, what works really well for me is being so transparent, and makes them not afraid to come to me and be transparent right back. And I ask for grace when I need grace, but I always recover. I always tell my team it's not about the mistake, it's about the recovery. I just did it for the people in my building, right? Yeah. I genuinely know that's what lights me up. Seeing them achieve things that they never thought they could achieve, and then having a glass ceiling, shattering that and moving on to the next thing truly is what lights me up as a leader. And it's important to find out what lights you up as a leader so you can keep pouring into that cup, because it's not about us, honestly. Yeah. But it is about us. If we're not fueled by what it's giving us, then we're going to eventually hit a wall and stop.
What I love to hear from you the most is like, you're in a place that most salon owners listening to this will be like, wow, I would kill to be where she's at. And I know that didn't happen overnight, but what I hear from you most is like, you have no ego. And that's what's so cool about your story. You can tell that like you're not perfect. And I think that's what people want to hear is like, there are some downfalls. There are some things that I still want to improve and still want to work on, because I think there's this facade about businesses and it's like, oh, wow, it must be perfect. We've even like toyed on like creating sort of a reality show about all the crazy chaos that goes on inside of our business and the fires that we have to put out and all the things. And so what would you tell another salon owner that is just and honestly on the brink of giving up? I talk to them every day. People are just like, I don't know what I got myself into. I should just quit. What would you tell someone that wants to get to your level that are just in the weeds and it's hard to figure it out?
Oh, I could talk about this for a long time. I'll try to keep it a little bit briefer. So I would say, aside from like really getting into your numbers and not being afraid of that, which I could preach about forever, it is just like, have the hard conversations, right? Have the hard conversations, not just with your team, but with yourself.
Yeah.
We're not perfect. It is okay to admit fault. It's okay to, have humility. It is all right that they don't need you to be perfect. They want you to be human.
Yeah.
And have boundaries. Boundaries are not a bad thing. I mean, I should be preaching to myself right now because I am still learning this, but like, have boundaries. Having something that your team can look at and say like, I don't like this rule. I don't like this system, but I understand the importance of it. And really, when it all comes down to it, the best advice I could give is just do the one thing that you are massively avoiding.
Yeah. Oh my
gosh. That's it.
Yes.
Whatever scares the shit out of you the most, do it. Because that will truly get you there.
I love that. What is the thing that you massively avoided for a long time?
I have been known to be a very lax leader in the, like, I let people go too far, right? Yeah. And that's just my personality. And so for me, it's really just being okay with saying the hard shit, being okay with, I don't care if I'm the bad guy. I have to be the bad guy. Somebody has to do it.
Yes.
And I would give too much grace. And for me, I've gotten myself into a lot of pickles. I've had people look me dead in the face and be like, well, she got to do that. Why couldn't I do that? And I'm like, you're actually right. You're 100% right. Yeah. And so it's time to tighten that up. And, I sometimes get I have like a fairness complex, and then that gets in my head and I'm like, oh my God. So if I let her do it accidentally, now I'm, so for me, it's just really, I've had to put my foot in I've put my foot in my mouth many times, and just being upfront and honest and saying like, I'm human and so are you, and we can make it through.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely love that. I see so many salon owners or business owners in general, they struggle with that, like correcting fast, like, oh, I'll wait till the next one-on-one, or maybe I'll get an opportunity to have a coaching moment. Something I always tell, people is like, when I walk in the doors of my environment, my head is always on a swivel, and it's not on a swivel if I'm trying to catch someone doing wrong. I want to make people extraordinary. And if I'm not able to coach them on, I had an email went out yesterday from one of my employees, and she mentioned the wrong title of someone when she was like CCing in an email, right? And I think to some it would be like, and she said this person's title and she ended it with girl, like instead of like director, it was like, this is our girl. And I finally go, hey, do you see why that's not, because we're talking to a big corporation here, we need them to take us seriously. She's like, oh my gosh, I never would have looked at it that way, but I think some of you guys listening be like, that is very nitpicky, right? And I think that's where we kind of go wrong, is that like lack, because I've been the same way. I don't want to have those hard conversations. I'm very lax. I want people to just love life and just like, let's just vibe and move on. But I've had the same exact, thing that I've avoided, is just, wanting to correct fast, because it's not easy. So I love that you said that, because you and everyone else struggles with that. I think that's great.
Yeah,
The one thing that
sure.
I too avoided, I know you mentioned this earlier, is the financial part of, salons and learning how to perfectly read that P&L statement and be able to tell the story about your business in a matter of seconds, and the cash flow and balance sheets and all of those things. I very much avoided those things for many years because it was intimidating. I'm like, am I really, I had took remedial math in college, so that was before I dropped out. So I'm like, am I really gonna have to learn how to do these things? So I've heard you say earlier, this was something I had to learn, something that a skill set that I had to develop. So I love that so much.
And at any level, like I feel like finances are
Mhm.
definitely my jive. Like I am so good with the numbers. I also failed algebra twice, just saying, in high school.
I love that.
And at this point, I feel pretty sharp, but
Yeah.
I've taken it as far as I could take it. So I just recently hired a financial coach because I'm looking at all these figures and I don't know what to make of them. So now I'm finding somebody else to help me up level. And I think that's super important.
Yeah, the next expert. I completely agree. And that's just what we have to do to succeed sometimes. So, well, I want you to tell everyone, like, where can they find you? What do you do? Like, do you help other salon owners? Tell them how they can reach out to you, because I know my audience listening to this is just going to be like, wow, she's incredible. I want to go where she's at. So they probably will reach out for that.
I love that. Absolutely. So I do salon consulting. I just started doing that about 8 months ago. It's been really great. It's just like one-on-one action. We're kind of digging into your biggest problem and solving that. And so you can find me on Instagram. You're going to find me at hbic.610, and that's spelled out SIXTEN. And then if you want to follow along on our salon's journey, you can follow us at 610 Salon.
That is incredible. Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for being on the podcast. I was excited to chat with you, and hopefully we can see each other in the near future at an event or something.
I hope so too. This was great. Thank you so much for having me.